Hi, everybody. So I'm going to get started because I have a lot of content to cover and I'm not sure how long this is going to take. Let's start out by reading this quote from Ayn Rand. You have been called selfish for the courage of acting on your own mind and bearing sole responsibility for your own life. You have been called arrogant for your independent mind. You have been called cruel for your unyielding integrity. You have been called antisocial for the vision that made you venture upon undiscovered roads. Now, I'm going to talk about Ayn Rand's philosophy, which is objectivism. But I mean, my understanding of objectivism is that basically objectivism is a rejection of taking things on faith, it is a rejection of mysticism. And so you're supposed to use your mind to decide what is morally correct and not basically do things just because other people told you to do so or because of some religion or something that is external to your own mind. If it doesn't make sense to you, if it's not proper, if you can't justify your actions, then you shouldn't do it. If it's not in your rational self interest, you shouldn't do it. And then from that, she gets into other things about virtue, love, um, capitalism. Now, I don't agree with everything that Ayn Rand said. I definitely don't agree with capitalism. The capitalism part doesn't make sense. She does make some contradictions. She does say that like Native Americans and Palestinians are savages, but um, the only part. So I don't necessarily consider myself objectivist because I don't subscribe to the entire philosophy, but I do agree with her ethical egoism that you should put yourself first. You should do what is in your rational self interest. I do reject altruism. I think that we have been indoctrinated to believe that we should put others before ourselves and not care about ourselves at all. We should have low self esteem. And so I'm going to start out by reading some quotes and then I'm going to get in some of her videos. The objectivist ethics proudly advocates and upholds rational selfishness, which means the values required for the man's survival, qua man, which means the values required for human survival, not the values produced by the desires, the emotions, the aspirations, the feelings, the whims, or the needs of irrational brutes who have never outgrown the primordial practice of human sacrifices, have never discovered an industrial society, and can conceive of no self interest but that of grabbing the loot of the moment. Activist holds that human goods does not require human sacrifices and cannot be achieved by the sacrifice of anyone to anyone. It holds that the rational interests of men do not clash, that there is no conflict of interest among men who do not desire the unearned, who do not make sacrifices nor accept them, who deal with as traders giving value for value. Now, when she talks about the irrational brutes, I'm going to get into our clip, but I'm basically going to give you the cliff notes if you guys don't listen to the entire live stream. She basically calls it cannibalism, that you have no right to live for yourself. And so basically, she says that altruism is impossible because you can't be sacrificial enough. You you really should get to the point that you face your own starvation. Really, she says that you should basically be giving away your leg away because somebody may want to eat your leg. So you have no right to your own leg. You have no right to your own clothing. You have no right to your own housing. You should always put others first. She says that it's impossible. It's a race to the bottom. And she basically says that it's evil because it's an indoctrination to think that you should not care about yourself and you should only care about others. The meaning ascribed in popular uses to the word selfishness is not merely wrong. It represents a devastating intellectual package deal which is responsible more than any single factor for the arrested moral development of mankind. In popular usage, the word selfishness is a synonym of evil. The image it conjures is of a murderous brute who tramples over piles of corpses to achieve his own ends, who cares for no living being and pursues nothing but the gratification of the mindless whims of any immediate moment. Yet the exact meaning and dictionary definition of the word selfishness is concern with one's own interests. This concept does not include a moral evaluation. It does not tell us whether concern with one's own interest is good or evil, nor does it tell us what constitutes man's actual interest. It is the task of ethics to answer such questions. There is a fundamental difference between a man who sees his self in production and a man who sees it in robbery. The evil of a robber does not lie in the fact that he pursues his own interests, but in what he regards as to his own interests, not in the fact that he pursues his values, but in what he chose to value, not in the fact that he wants to live, but in the fact that he wants to live on a subhuman level. If it is true that what I mean by selfishness, it is not what is meant conventionally, then this is one of the worst indictments of altruism. It means that altruism permits no concept of self-respecting, self-supporting man, a man who supports his life by his own effort and neither sacrifices himself nor others. It means that altruism permits no view of men except as sacrificial animals and profiteers on sacrifice and victims and parasites, that it permits no concept of benevolent coexistence among men, that it permits no concept of justice. To redeem both man and morality, it is the concept of selfishness that one has to redeem. The first step is to assert man's right to moral existence, that is, to recognize his need of a moral code to guide the course and the fulfillment of his own life. The reasons why man needs a moral code will tell you that the purpose of morality is to define one's proper values and interests. That concern with his own interests is the essence of a moral existence, and that man must be the beneficiary of his own moral actions. I really want to underscore this, that man must be the beneficiary of his own moral actions, that basically your ethics should serve your interests. They should not be sacrificial. You should not have ethics that benefit everybody else except you. You should not be a sacrificial animal. So this is why when people say, why don't you care about it's not that I don't care about others. I believe in mutualism. I believe that if you help me, I help you. If you support my cause, I support your cause. Quid pro quo, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Don't come to me telling me to support veganism when you reject antinatalism. Don't tell me to support your rights for whatever cause and you don't support my right to medical assistance. Don't tell me that I should put my welfare or I should subordinate my welfare to yours, that you should come first. I should care about your cause. And you're going to manipulate me, by the way. No, that's not how this works. I put myself first because I have self-esteem. This is what everybody should do. You all should be putting yourself first. Stop being sacrificial animals, because what is in your rational self-interest is in the interest of the collective. She doesn't really get into it, but basically she says there's no such thing as what does she call it? I mean, it's different ways you can call it. It's like the common good, or what is the public. The public is basically just a collection of individuals. So if it doesn't serve the interests of the individual, then it doesn't actually serve the public. The public is a nebulous term that they basically use that to justify all forms of authoritarianism, of tyranny, because they say that they're protecting the public, but they're actually going against the individual. It's impossible to serve the interests of the public while going against the interests of the individual, because you can look at any given policy and it's for the state's interest. It's like, okay, am I part of the state? It goes against my interests, so therefore it goes against the state's interest if I'm supposed to be a part of the state. But it's a nebulous term which is undefined and undefinable, and so it always leads to tyranny. She says that all dictators, all tyrants were altruists because they thought they were serving the greater good. So when you're serving the greater good, the consequence is that somebody else has to be sacrificed. right? So they're never going to care about your interests. They don't. The public doesn't care about, or the state doesn't care about your interests. The only people who can't, you should care about your interests if nobody else does, right? Um, you don't have to be manipulated to go along with it. Of course, they have force on their side, but that doesn't mean that you have to accept it. You still shouldn't. I mean, because they're going. I'm not sure. I have several clips. I'm not sure that she goes into all of it, but basically, she goes into Immanuel Kant, but it's also Christianity that you're your brother's keeper. You sacrifice, turn the other cheek, put everybody before yourself. Um, this is an ethic. This is an ethic of masochism, of cannibalism, of destruction, of the erosion of self-esteem. And this is part of the reason why everybody is so miserable right now, is because there are givers and there are takers. The people, they're going to manipulate because they want you to give till you can't give anymore. You're basically going to be sawing off your own leg to feed somebody else because you don't need your leg and they need it more than you do. Um, and the people who are constantly asking you to give, they are the takers. They want you to feel guilty for not giving. You've already given, and there's no reciprocity, but they want you to continue giving. And they're not the ones who are giving, by the way. They want to tell you that you should give while they're the ones who are taking. Um, there have been situations where I have money. I mean, I had little money, and like I gave somebody my like $5. I probably had 20, but I gave him, because that's when I was still Christian. I gave him $5. He's like, that's all you got? Like, that's it? I didn't have to give you that. In fact, if you don't appreciate the $5 I gave you, then you can give it back to me. But it's entitlement. And she's going to talk about how altruism is not it's not based on benevolence, because the proponents of altruism believe that is a moral duty. So you're not doing something out of the goodness of your heart. You're doing it because you owe the collective, you owe society, you owe anybody else who needs it. And so basically everyone becomes a slave. Everybody becomes a slave to each other. You have no right to live for your own benefit because you always have to put every other people first. All right. Let me just try to get through this without ranting too much. Let me see. Okay, no comments yet. Um, since all bodies have to be gained or kept by men's actions, any breach between actor and beneficiary necessitates an injustice. The sacrifice of some men to others, of the actors to the non-actors, of the moral to the immoral. Nothing could ever justify such a breach, and no one ever has. The choice of the beneficiary of moral values is merely a preliminary or introductory issue in the field of morality. It is not a substitute for morality, nor a criterion of moral value, as altruism has made it. Neither is it a moral primary. It has to be derived from and validated by the fundamental premises of a moral system. The objectivist ethics holds that the actor must always be the beneficiary of his action, and that man must act for his own rational self-interest, but his right to do so is derived from his nature as man and from the function of moral values in human life, and therefore is applicable only in the context of a rational, objectively demonstrated and validated code of moral principles which define and determine his actual self-interest. It is not a license to do as he pleases, and it is not applicable to the altruist image of a selfish brute, nor to any man motivated by irrational emotions, feelings, urges, wishes, or whims. This is said as a warning against the kind of Nietzschean egoists who, in fact, are a product of the altruist morality and represent the other side of the altruist coin. I've already talked about Nietzsche. Um, I'm not going to bore you with that. The will to power, overcoming. I reject that. Jordan Peterson seems to be a huge fan of Nietzsche. The men who believe that any action regardless of its nature is good if it is intended for one's own benefit. Just as the satisfaction of the irrational desires of others is not a criterion of moral value, neither is the satisfaction of one's own rational desires. Morality is not a contest of whims. A similar type of error is committed by the man who declares that since man must be guided by his own independent judgment, any action he chooses to take is moral if he chooses it. One's own independent judgment is the means by which he must choose one's actions, but it is not a moral criterion nor a moral validation. Only reference to a demonstrable principle can validate one's choices, just as man cannot survive by any random means, but must discover and practice the principles which his survival requires. So man's self-interest cannot be determined by blind desires or random whims, but must be discovered and achieved by the guidance of rational principles. This is why the objectivist ethics is a morality of rational self-interest or of rational selfishness. Since selfishness is a concern with one's own interests, the objectivist ethics uses that concept in exact and purest sense. It is not a concept that one can surrender to man's man's enemies, nor to the unthinking misconceptions, distortions, prejudices, and fears of the ignorant and the irrational. The attack on selfishness is an attack on man's self-esteem. To surrender one is to surrender the other, right? It's an attack on your self-esteem, and the goal of the altruist is to make you feel guilty, right? Guilt is the stock and trade of altruism. It is the only currency they can negotiate with. You should always feel guilty. It is a manipulation. It's an attack on your psyche, and I would say it's a choice to give into it, but it's really not a choice because you have been indoctrinated from childhood. Your parents, society, religion have told you this. So if nobody's ever told you anything differently, then that is what you're going to believe. Until I stumbled on this, I thought it was wrong to be selfish. My mom always said if I didn't do whatever she wanted me to do, if I didn't always put her needs first, if I didn't sacrifice myself to her, I was being selfish. I was always told being selfish was wrong. So anytime somebody wanted to take advantage of me, if they wanted to borrow money or whatever, and of course, when they say borrow, they never intend to pay it back. But I never thought I had the right to say no, because they would just say, "Oh, you're being selfish," and I would feel guilty, like I was a bad person. So I would give them the money, and of course, they didn't pay me back. But it's like they set you up for failure because they told you that this is the way you're supposed to exist. You're supposed to just give, give, give. You're supposed to help everybody else. It's wrong to put yourself first. So if your parents never taught you that it was right to put yourself first, then that is the way you're going to live your life. It's not, I mean, I was already in my 30s when I learned that selfishness was actually a virtue. I probably would still be believing that if I didn't stumble on Ayn Rand. Again, I'm not saying that I'm an objectivist. I'm just the only part that I accept is her ethical egoism. Um, I do agree with some of her concepts about the role of government and things like that. I don't agree with capitalism. Do you ask what moral obligation I owe to my fellow men? None, except the obligation I owe to myself. Excuse me. To material objects and to all of existence, rationality. I deal with men as my nature and their demands by means of reason. I seek or desire nothing from them except such relations as they care to enter or of their own voluntary choice. It is only with their mind that I can deal and only for my own self-interest. When they see that my interest coincides with theirs, when they don't, I enter no relationship. I let disinterest go their way, and I do not swerve from mine. I win by means of nothing but logic, and I surrender to nothing but logic. I do not surrender my reason or deal with men who surrender theirs. Men have been taught that the ego is the synonym of evil and selfishness is the ideal of virtue. but the creator is the egoist in the absolute sense. And the selfishness man, the selfish man is the one who does not think, feel, judge, or act. These are functions of the self. Here, the basic reversal is most deadly. The issue has been perverted, and man has been left no alternative, no freedom. As poles of good and evil, he was offered two conceptions: egoism and altruism. Egoism was held to mean the sacrifice of others to self, altruism, the sacrifice of self to others. This tied man irrevocably to other men and left him nothing but a choice of pain, his own pain borne for the sake of others, or pain inflicted upon others for the sake of self. When it was added that man must find joy in self immolation, the trap was closed. Man was forced to accept masochism as his ideal under the fact that sadism was his only alternative. This was the greatest fraud ever perpetuated on mankind. This was the device by which dependence and suffering was perpetuated as fundamentals of life. The choice is not self-sacrifice or domination. The choice is independence or dependence. The code of the creator or the code of the second-hander. This is the basic issue. It rests on the alternative of life or death. The code of the creator is built on the needs of the reasoning mind, which allows man to survive. The code of the second-hander is built on the needs of a mind incapable of survival. All that which proceeds from man's independent ego is good, and that which proceeds from man's dependence upon men is evil. The egoist, in the absolute sense, is not the man who sacrifices others. He is the man who stands above the need of others he is the man who stands above the need of using others in any manner. He does not function through them. He is not concerned with them in any particular, any primary matter. I need to slow down. Not in his arm, not in his motive, not in his thinking, not in his desires, not in the source of his energy. He does not exist for any other man and asks no other man to exist for him. This is the only form of brotherhood and mutual respect possible between men. I keep talking y'all about mutualism. It needs to be reciprocal. Don't ask me to help you if you're not going to help me. I mean, again, I was not always this way. I was very sacrificial. I have grown to be very transactional. If anybody's going to ask me for a favor, um, you want me to support your cause, then you're going to have to give me something in return. You're going to have to support my cause. I'm not doing this stuff where it's just one-sided, where you just take and extract from me. Those days are over. And I think that you guys should do the exact same thing. And in fact, let me just give you a little quick piece of advice before I continue. Like, for example, if somebody wants to borrow money from you, I want you to know that a lot of times they're not going to pay it back. They have no intention on paying it back. They want you to feel guilty. They want to act like it's such a crisis. It's so like it's a state of emergency. If you don't give me this money, my whole world is going to fall apart. So you feel guilty, right? If you have any empathy, you probably would give them the money. Stop doing that. This is what I would advise you to do. Ask for collateral, right? So for example, if somebody wants $200, they need to give you something of value that is worth at least $200. So that way, if they don't pay it back, then you at least get your money. But they're not, even if they have the collateral, they're not going to give it to you because they have no intention on paying it back. And so that nips the whole conversation in the butt. They ask for money, you ask for collateral, right? And I guarantee they're going to say, never mind, never mind. I've done this several times. I used to just give it to them, and I've been screwed over so many times. You ask for collateral, they will stop begging. They're not going to pay it back. They have no intention on paying it back. And they want you to feel guilty. They want you to empathize with them. They want you to be the giver. They are the taker. All right, y'all. So that's my little piece of advice. I'm almost through with these quotes, and I'm going to get into the videos. The moral purpose of a man's life is the achievement of his own happiness. This does not mean that he is indifferent to all men, that human life is of no value to him, and that he has no reason to help others in an emergency. But it does mean that he does not subordinate his life to the welfare of others, that he does not sacrifice himself to their needs, that the relief of their suffering is not his primary concern, that any help he gives is an exception, not a rule, an act of generosity, not a moral duty. This is it is marginal and incidental, as disasters are marginal and incidental in the course of human existence, and that values, not disasters, are the goal, the first concern, and the motive power of his life. Love, friendship, respect, admiration are the emotional response of one man to the virtues of another. Um, I'm going to get into that again. I'm giving guys the cliff notes because she does basically say that nobody's entitled to your love or respect or anything. Like they have to earn it. She was a big fan of Aristotle. Aristotle talked about the three types of friendships slash relationships. They're friendships based on pleasure, utility, and virtue. Um, the former is the only type of friendship that is basically self-sustaining and enduring. If it's based on utility and pleasure, then that's really not going to last. So basically, you should choose your relationships based on virtue. Um, at least your friendships. If you don't have, if your virtues are not in alignment, then you probably shouldn't be calling these people your friends. If they're, I mean, if it's pleasure, that's fine. Just admit what it is. I've talked about this in other live streams. I don't believe that you can get all these qualities for one person. I don't think it's reasonable. I don't think that one person is your end all be all. I don't think you're going to find a soulmate who's going to give you the pleasure, utilities, and virtue. Like they may have the virtue, but they may not be. They may not give you pleasure or serve utility, or vice versa. Like in any order, in any way you shuffle it, a lot of people are not going to do that. So I think it is unfair to expect that from one person, to expect that person to sacrifice to make you happy. Um, I don't really want to. I mean, this is this a sidebar. I don't really believe in monogamy, but because it's unrealistic to expect one person to just give to you and make you happy and fulfill you. But that's just my personal thing. This has nothing to do with Ayn Rand. But the problem is that a lot of times when people get in these relationships, they do expect that other person to sacrifice and make them happy. This person is supposed to complete you. That person is supposed to be your sacrificial animal, and you're supposed to be theirs. That's not how it works. You're supposed to be a complete human being before you jump into that relationship. And Ayn Rand actually does have a quote. She says, "I represent the proper integration of a complete human being." Which I out of all of her quotes, I do try to live by that. I do try to be the proper integration of a complete human being, and not look for others to validate me or complete me. Now let me start that over again. Love, respect, admiration are the emotional response of one man to the virtues of another. The spiritual payment given in exchange for the personal, selfish pleasure which one man derives from the virtues of another man's character. Only a brute or an altruist would claim that the appreciation of another person's virtue is an act of selflessness. That is as far as one man's own selfish interest and pleasure are concerned. It makes no difference whether one deals with a genius or a fool, whether one meets a hero or a thug, whether one marries an ideal woman or a slut. In spiritual issues, a traitor is a man who does not seek to be loved for his weaknesses or flaws, only for his virtues, who does not grant his love to the weaknesses or the flaws of others, only to their virtues. I believe this is the last one. Okay, now we're going to get into the videos. The first right on earth is the right of the ego. Man's first duty is to himself. His moral law is to never place his prime goal within the persons of others. His moral obligation is to do what he wishes, provided his wish does not depend primarily on other men. This includes the whole spirit of his creative faculty, his thinking, his work. It does not, but it does not include the spirit of the gangster, the altruist, and the dictator. A man who thinks and works alone, a man cannot rob, exploit, or rule alone. Robbery, exploitation, and ruling presuppose victims. They imply dependence. They are the province of the second-hander. Rulers of men are not egoists. They create nothing. They exist entirely through the persons of others. The goal is in their subjects. In the activity of enslaving, they are as dependent as the beggar, the social worker, and the bandit. The form of dependence does not matter. This is what I want you guys to, and this is a contradiction because she is a capitalist, right? By the way, does she not realize that capitalists enslave people, that they don't actually live through their own productivity? Because I know she's no longer here, but we still have a Rand Institute, and they still puppet everything that she says about capitalism. The capitalists are dependent. They're just as dependent as the beggar, the social worker, and the bandit. This is a glaring contradiction, which is why I don't agree with her whole objectivist philosophy. She does have a lot of internal contradictions. But anyway, let me see if I have any comments, and then we're going to get into the videos. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your support. All right, now this is the first video, which I have sped up a little bit, but I don't think it's too fast.
To begin with, Ms. Rand, would you define what altruism is?
Altruism is an ethical system which claims that man has no right to exist for his own sake, that the sole justification of his existence is the service he renders to others, and that self-sacrifice is his basic virtue, value, and duty. Altruism regards man, in effect, as a sacrificial animal. The word is coined by Auguste Comte in the 19th century to mean specifically the placing of the interests of others above your own.
I wonder if you would discuss why to be altruistic and to be benevolent is not the same.
This is a package deal spread and fostered by the altruist. It is to their own interest to suggest to men that altruism merely means kindness or benevolence or respect for the rights of others, which it does not. In fact, most people, I would venture to say an overwhelming majority, do believe that that is all that altruism means. So that, in effect, if you give a dime to a beggar, you are an altruist. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because altruism does not claim that you should help others when and if you can. It specifically claims that you should subordinate your own interests to the interests of others, and therefore others should take first place in your life as a moral duty. In that case, kindness is impossible. If it is your duty to give away your last penny to anyone who might need it, you are giving him his due. In fact, altruists would say it is his right to demand your penny. Therefore, it's not an action of kindness or generosity or charity on your part. It is a moral duty. Altruism, in fact, makes benevolence among men impossible. Because if you have to regard all other men as mortgage holders on your life, if their claims have to supersede any interest of your own, then you can feel nothing but fear and hatred toward other men, and they are a threat to your own existence.
I just want to stop right there because she talks about how other men are mortgage holders on your life. Because when I talk about how we were slaves, people are saying, well, you can't be a slave because we don't have chattel slavery anymore. You don't have an actual master. No, you're a slave to the collective, right? A lack of own. Either you own your life or you don't. If your life serves the interests of others, it doesn't serve yours, then that makes you a slave. You are a slave to the collective. You are a slave to the state. You don't live for your own sake. You're here for everybody else's extraction, and everybody's taken from you, but you get nothing out of it. That is enslavement. And I did talk about. I can get back to my book, but I'm not going to bore you guys with that right now. The definition of slavery is two-part. It does talk about chattel slavery, but the second definition talks about the deprivation of the disposal of one's person, property, and services. So it's two different definitions. I'm using the former definition. It's disjunctive. So the person who said that I used that case law incorrectly, you're wrong. There's two separate definitions. I was using the second definition.
And if you do not satisfy their claims, you have to take moral blame for it. That makes any kind of authentic benevolence among men impossible. It entails other contradictions. Thereby, you should consider the benefit of others as a value if you do not consider your own benefit a value. Altruism demands that you regard everybody as a value except yourself. And remember that this applies to every human being. Therefore, according to an altruist, no human being has any right to any value nor to any happiness of his own. He only has the right and duty to serve others. Therefore, altruism does regard men as sacrificial animals, as object of sacrifice for others. That is not a theory of benevolence for men. There can be no benevolence for men unless one recognizes man's moral and political right to, for his own sake, neither sacrificing himself to others nor others to himself, which is precisely.
And I do talk at length about the principle of self-ownership, that you own your life in a state of nature. The collective does not own you. The state does not own you. Now, the state, they're not going to admit it, but the state does believe that it owns you, which is why they're exercising superior control over your disposal rights. The society believes that it owns you. Like any person in public who thinks that they are entitled to your time, your money, your resources, they don't think that you have a right to live for your own sake. They think that you should exist for them. A lot of times, I mean, I don't want to be solipsistic, but I did have narcissistic parents who believed that I existed to serve their needs. I'm sure many of you have parents who believe that basically you're just their property. You exist for them. They created you for their own ends. You have no right to live for yourself. And that does not terminate at the age of majority. Once you turn 18, they still think that you exist for them, that you should always put their needs before yours. You're supposed to be a sacrificial animal. Right. I think a lot of this does have to do with parenthood, but it's the way society functions in its totality is altruistic. It's based on sacrifice. It's based on you are your brother's keepers. But this is basically a division between the givers and the takers. You're supposed to be the giver because you have been made to feel guilty. And the good people, well, you're just going to be fed to the alligators, right? You don't have any self-esteem. You don't know how to assert yourself. You haven't been taught to assert yourself. So you're just going to constantly give. And they say that it makes you happy to make other people happy. This is a mistake that I used to make. I used to think that if I gave to others, they would give to me. They would want me to be happy if I made them. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all.
Precisely what altruism denies.
Ms. Rand, why would anyone accept altruism under your definition?
Most people do not have a consistent moral theory to guide them, a theory which they understand fully practiced. But the reasons why they accept altruism are many. Men realize, so long as they have to make choices, they need some kind of code of moral values to guide their choices and the sort of values and goals that they will pursue. Yet, they have not been offered any code of morality other than the altruistic one. Most people are afraid to be left on their own in moral issues. They are more afraid of it than in any other issue. Men are not afraid to be scientists and to stand alone in the face of it. They are terrified in issues of values, in having to stand alone and define what objectively is right or wrong for men. That, I would say, is the most general reason why men accept altruism or at least pay lip service to it.
So this is her defining objectivism, that you should live based on your own rational self-interest, based on what is objectively true. You define your own values. It's not for anybody else to define them for you.
A common variant of altruism is the belief that you should give only to those who are less better off than yourself, those who are in need.
Your remark is correct. That is what altruists hold. And the result of it is that it makes need, pain, failure, disaster the leading purpose and value in life. In other words, it amounts to the following situation, which you can see politically coming through today. If a man fails for any reason, his own fault or through accidents, gives him a mortgage on the lives, the earnings, the property, the services of those who have not failed. And therefore, the result is a hierarchy of values, of which the zero is the dominant standard. To the extent to which you lack any value at all, personal, spiritual, or material, you have a claim on your betters. To the extent to which a man has achieved values, he is the sacrificial animal for any zero holder. A man who is a full altruist would have to find a cannibal village and offer himself as a meal, because that would be the only way in which he could make a total sacrifice for the sake of others, deriving nothing in return. A total altruist is in a contradiction every time he eats, because that morsel of food may be needed by someone else. Because the altruists get out of it by saying that you should reserve for yourself only the minimum necessary in order to go on serving others. But that in itself is a contradiction. What is that minimum necessary? And the main issue is, why should the needs of others have primacy over your own? This question has never been answered by any philosopher of ethics. The sole base of altruism has always been mystical. The issue of self-sacrifice to others has to be taken on faith, because no rational justification for it has ever been offered, nor can it ever be offered.
Is it fair to say that an altruist would have to replace his own values by the values held by other people? And if this was followed generally, that there would be nobody able to hold the value of his own?
Yes, of course. Just as you must sacrifice your material possessions or your effort to others, you must also sacrifice your intellectual integrity. If you hold to your own ideas of what you believe is true, that is a selfish action. You must sacrifice your mind to what others believe or want to be true. Therefore, you must always agree with the majority in all issues, because it is selfish to hold out for no better ground than the conclusion of your own mind. That, of course, is the basic evil of altruism. It does demand the sacrifice of your mind.
All right. So let's see if anybody's still here.
Quest for understanding, for an integrated, consistent view of life is there enormously and tragically.
Sorry, I didn't mean to start that one yet. So basically, they do want you to sacrifice your mind. They don't want you to think. They want you to just give. It's like if they believe that something is ethical, that they believe is right. And I'm not going to be specific, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about. And you disagree with it. You don't have a right to disagree with it. You should just do it because they determine that it is right. You should dedicate your life to their causes. They're not going to reciprocate because they don't see any value in your causes. They think that you should just prioritize their cause without giving any reciprocity, because they have decided that it is right. They have decided that it is healthy. It is they don't even say it is for your self-interest. They think it's for the interest of others, and you should just do it. Now, let me go to this next video. I'm not playing the Johnny Carson one. That one I'm going to skip. Why is it? Okay, I don't know how this happened. Okay. Make sure it's up. Okay, y'all can see it. Great. I would like to make it larger, though. Let me just play it, because I don't want to.
Does man should he have any concern for other men? You say individual, you say...
Concern is a very loose term. What would you mean by it?
Well, certainly, most of us are brought up on an ethic that says that we are our brother's keeper.
I'd say we most certainly are not, could not be, and should not attempt to be. The only concern men should have for other men is respect for their rights. A man should never expect another man to sacrifice for him, nor should he sacrifice himself for other men.
So y'all heard that live stream last night? Where he were like, Steve was asking me, like, basically saying that, he felt sorry. And it's like, I don't really need like pity. Like, I need you to respect my rights. And so once he stated that he supported my rights, then we were good. So that's the thing. Like, I don't like people think they want to focus on your mental health. They want to talk. It's like, who cares about talking? Who cares about your pity? Respect my rights. That's all I'm asking.
The independence and the rights of others, and never take part in any form of enslavement, political enslavement. But outside of that, he's not responsible for other men and should never.
Let me just say this: political enslavement. Through democracy, the collectors have decided that you are forced to exist. They don't have a right to do that. It is political enslavement. Just because it's not chattel slavery does not mean that it's not political enslavement or it's not existential enslavement.
Never permit them to assume the role of responsibility for him. He should not submit to force nor exercise force. He should not ask others to leave for his sake, nor should he ever leave for the sake of others. He should treat others as traders. But that is, if two men agree on a given deal or they want to cooperate, that's fine. They trade value for value voluntarily, without sacrifice on either part. They both serve their rational self-interest if they deal with each other. If they don't want to deal with each other, they should not be forced to.
And you place the emphasis upon rational and their rational self-interest.
Oh, yes, certainly. I place that emphasis on everything.
Yes.
Because that which is proper for you on a rational basis cannot be proper for you on any other basis. And therefore, all your rights rest on your nature as a rational being. If you want to claim any kind of rights, you cannot claim them for your feelings, only for your mind. And the actions I regard as moral are only the ones based on rational goals and rational motives.
The others are immoral in your philosophy?
Totally immoral. You mean those the actions
that are not based upon reason?
Yes.
So that charity, in this sense, based upon emotion, would not be moral?
Charity is a very marginal issue. One of my main tenets is that charity should never be a duty And when you want to help someone else, it is proper, it's not evil, provided you do it on the basis of his value. Because he's a good person who suffers through no fault of his own, because he's a friend of yours, because he's a victim of injustice. Those are all helping values. But never, if you grant a man charity on the ground of his flaws, his not accidental misfortune, but a misfortune brought about by his own evil, then that kind of help I do regard as evil.
How does the concept of love for one another fit into this philosophy?
Shall we start?
I'm going to stop that because I want to play the other clip where she talks about love. I have 2 more clips and then we're going to be done with this live stream.
Because you've earned your money. You have to feel guilty and apologize for it. Well, he hasn't and doesn't intend to learn from you. He just wants your money. That's what we're being taught. Why are we being taught? Because the ruling philosopher today in Harvard and everywhere else is Immanuel Kant. And that's the real villain of our age. It's not Karl Marx.
You mean he's the one, huh?
He's the one.
Kant is the one. Okay.
It's not Karl Marx, and it's not even religion. So I do not approve of religion.
So she's talking about this from a philosophical standpoint. Immanuel Kant has this whole philosophy of transcendentalism, that basically we can't know objective reality. Everything is subjective. We can't know anything. And because of, according to Kant, we don't have any objective morality or philosophy. Everything is just so mushy. And so she's basically saying that there is an objective reality. You can use your own mind to perceive what is rational and what is correct.
Religionists, but those are not the villains. The villains is Immanuel Kant, who preached that man's mind is not valid, that the things you perceive there, they're not real. Things in themselves, as he preached, are something which exists in another dimension. Your world is only phenomenal, as he called it, and then there is this noumenal world, which you cannot perceive in any way whatever. And that noumenal world is the true reality. Only you can't perceive it, so you better live here on earth and do your duty. And your duty is some kind of voice that comes from these other dimensions, which you can't know. Well, how does he know? He doesn't tell you. But he tells you that morally you have to do your duty. What does your duty consist of? Of doing things in which you can take no possible interest and no advantage to yourself. You know that he is even worse than an altruist. An altruist would tell you, you shouldn't be happy, but you should sacrifice for other people, and then you're moral. Kant goes beyond it. He says, if you do things because you have any goal, whatever, even the welfare of others, your action is not moral. Or as he puts it, action is not moral. Or as he puts it has no moral significance. To be truly moral, you should do things out of which you get nothing whatever, neither for yourself nor for others. If you can achieve that kind of being a total zero, offered for being eaten by any cannibal, then you're moral. Now that's the philosopher who rules today's life. If that is what the universities are preaching, Kant himself and all the endless variations of him and the derivatives from him, all modern philosophy are little illegitimate Kantians, if you know what I mean. If that's what children are taught, once they leave college, what do they bring to life? What you see today. We're kind of reaching the visible climax of Kantianism. They're big dope. They try to kill their mind in every way possible. They leave range of the moment. They have no values, no goals, and no selfishness. Well, they're terribly unselfish because they haven't got one independent idea in the world.
Tell me the value of selfishness.
Use another word, self-esteem. The value of selfishness is that you esteem yourself as a value, that you live according to your nature, which means by the judgment of your own mind, and you respect your own mind, you respect your own ability to do the right thing. Therefore, you respect the possibility of being a morally virtuous person, and you regard yourself as a value.
Right, this is the thing. So you have to have self-esteem. You have to believe in your own mind. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that you're wrong. If you have self-esteem, you have conviction. I can go up on a panel of 8 or 10 people, or how many people, or whatever is, or a room full of people who disagree with me. If I have self-esteem, it doesn't matter what they think. I know that I'm right. It doesn't matter. They tell me that I'm stupid. I don't care. Because this has happened recently. It's like, oh, you're so stupid. Okay. Is that an argument, or is that an ad hominem? I mean, a lot of times people will make personal attacks, but at the end of the day, if you do have self-esteem, you don't have to sacrifice your values to theirs. Just because you're a minority. I can't remember who said it. Somebody said, a man with courage, something to the fact that one man with courage has a majority over a million with courage or without courage, or something like that. Like, It doesn't matter that you're it's an appeal to popularity to think that just because you're outnumbered that you're wrong. You're not wrong. Eventually, hopefully they will come around to see your side of view or your point. You have to articulate, you have to express it. But even if that group of people don't agree with you, it's like other people may be listening and they may say, no, those 100 million people were wrong, you were right. A lot of times when you hear ideas when they're first articulated, it sounds ridiculous because of the age in which you were born, right? Nobody thinks that way. But maybe 100, 200, or 200 years down the road, then people come to accept it. So it doesn't matter how absurd it sounds. If you have self-esteem, then you should stand firm. Don't let anybody change your mind on what you know is objectively true.
Worth preserving.
Let me bring it down from Kant a little bit to a bromide that I had drummed into me as a child, and maybe you've heard it. Happiness comes from making other people happy.
Oh yes, who hasn't heard it? And that's the trouble. Let's aim at the day when people will not hear it anymore. Because it isn't true, it isn't justifiable, and the first question you would have to ask is why? Why is it good to want others to be happy, but not yourself? And I suppose you will be told that, well, but they will work for your happiness and not their own. Well, it's like an exchange of Christmas presents that neither party wants, but that you have to exchange presents and you're not allowed morally to do something for yourself. Whereas what?
I don't know if you've ever had that whole what is it called? The Santa, I forget what it's called. Anyway, where you're at work and everybody's supposed to get another coworker a gift, and then you make an effort to make sure that you get somebody a nice gift, and then it's like you always get the shitty gift. Stop doing that. Stop doing that, because you would be better off saving your money and buying yourself the gift that you actually want. They're not making any effort and they don't give a shit. So they get your gift and they're so happy because you actually made an effort, and they made no effort at all. They got you a piece of shit gift. Stop doing that. It's not reciprocal. They don't care. In theory, you would think that people would, make an effort and everybody would benefit. But no, you know how this turns out. You know how it turns out the same way every single time.
What I say, you can make others happy when and if those others mean something to you selfishly. If you love them, then you want to make them happy. Fine. If you don't love them, that's not a moral crime. You don't have to love everybody. You cannot love everybody because it's a meaningless expression. You can love only those whom you value, and if they contribute to your happiness, you contribute to theirs. That's fine. But each one of you has to be selfish about it. Supposing somebody were in love with you and said, I love you because you're so bad, so I sacrifice myself and I'm going to love you. Would you accept that, or would you say it's the most teaser? That's the most insulting thing anyone could have said to you, and yet that's what altruism would demand. And there is a great Russian writer who tried to practice it, Dostoevsky, who did poor, stupid little seamstress, whom he didn't love at all, out of the desire to make her happy. See, the end of it was she committed suicide. Now that is an altruist practice. That's what altruism leads to.
How about it's more blessed to give than to receive?
Well, that's obviously the welfare state. That's a clearly motivated slogan. To please give me something and you'll be blessed, but I will keep your material goods.
Now, you don't mind getting presents, do you?
Yes, I do.
Do you really?
Only from the people whom I love, or friends, or my husband.
But that's what I mean.
Yes, that I like, but from strangers I don't accept them.
No, but within your family and the people that you care deeply about, you would give them a present too.
Oh, yes, certainly. When I wanted to, but I wouldn't consider that a moral duty.
Okay, I had one last clip, which I didn't. Let me see if it's at the right place. Okay, here's the last clip. I'm not sure if it's at the exact location, but let's just see what happens.
God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes, I agree with the facts, but not the estimate of this criticism. Namely, if I am challenging the base of all these institutions, I'm challenging the moral code of altruism, the precept that man's moral duty is to live for others. that man must sacrifice himself to others, which is the present-day morality.
What do you mean by sacrifice himself for others? Now we're getting to the point.
One moment. Since I'm challenging the base, I necessarily would challenge the institutions you named, which are a result of that morality.
All right.
And now what is self-sacrifice?
Yes, what is self-sacrifice? You say that you do not like the altruism by which we live. You like a certain kind of Ayn Randist selfishness.
I would say that I don't like is too weak a word. I consider it evil. And self-sacrifice is the precept that man needs to serve others in order to justify his existence, that his moral duty is to serve others. That is what most people believe today.
Well, yes, we're taught to feel concerned for our fellow man, to feel responsible for his welfare, feel that we are, as religious people might put it, children under God and responsible one for the other. Now, why do you rebel? What's wrong with this philosophy?
But that is what, in fact, makes man a sacrificial animal. That man must work for others, concern himself with others, or be responsible for them. That is the role of a sacrificial object. I say that man is entitled to his own happiness and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he wish to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man should have self-esteem.
Right. So this is why in my book I say that we have no duties. Like, we have no positive duties. You may have negative duties to not harm anybody, but you don't have any positive duties just because because of your existence. The fact that you're here, the fact that you live in a democratic society does not create a legitimate duty for extraction. If somebody reciprocates, then that is a mutual benefit, right? That is in your rational self-interest. I'm going to get to the appendix part of it, but I guess that part sort of came from Ayn Rand. But when I keep saying, well, why don't you, instead of focusing on the right to medical assistance, why don't you just focus on improving other people's lives? Because that's not in my rational self-interest, right? And what is not in my rational self-interest can't be in the benefit of other people's self-interest. That is not a correct philosophy, that I should sacrifice myself. I should be miserable to make other people's happy, to make other people happy. I've done that. I've done it for the majority of my life. It doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to misery. It leads to you constantly putting other people's needs first, ignoring your own welfare. I did it primarily for my parents because my parents always wanted me to put them first. I did it for other people in my own, like, I guess you could say, my relationship with a narcissist, where I was supposed to give. I was not told anything otherwise. Stop doing that. And a lot of times the relationship that you have with your parents will manifest in your relationship that you have romantically, because it's like if your parents were narcissistic, I don't think you do it consciously, but you're going to probably seek somebody who is a narcissist, because for whatever reason, like your own self preservation, you see that as protection. Because your parents are supposed to be your protectors, so you think that somebody is narcissistic, that I don't know, maybe it makes you feel safe. It doesn't, like they're trying to exploit you. They don't actually care about you. But you have to be taught these things. If nobody ever told you, then you don't know.
And cannot man have self-esteem if he loves his fellow man? What's wrong with loving your fellow man? Christ, every important moral leader in man's history, has taught us that we should love one another. Why then is this kind of love in your mind immoral?
It is immoral if it is a love placed above oneself. It is more than immoral, it's impossible. Because when you are asked,
you can't love anybody if you don't love yourself. You love them based on the virtue and the values that they have to you, based on how they make, I'm not going to say make you feel, but based on their value to your life, that they're adding value. If they don't add any value, then it's not love. Like, there's no such thing as unconditional love. it always has to be conditional.
To love everybody indiscriminately, that is, to love people without any standard, to love them regardless of the fact of whether they have any value or virtue. You are asked to love nobody.
But in a sense, in your book, you talk about love as if it were a business deal of some kind.
Right? Love requires favoritism. If you love everyone equally and indiscriminately, then you actually love no one. You can't say that, oh, I love a cockroach the same way I love my child, or like you can't do that. You can't say I love a random person on the street the same way I love my partner, right? It doesn't work that way. Like if you love me the same way you love a random person that you never met, then you don't actually love me.
Isn't the essence of love that it is above self-interest?
Well, let me make it concrete for you. What would it mean to have love above self-interest? It would mean, for instance, that a husband would tell his wife, if he were moral, according to the conventional morality, that I am marrying you just for your own sake. I have no personal interest in it, but I am so unselfish that I am marrying you only for your own good.
Well, should husbands and wives
Would
tally
any
up?
woman like that?
Should husbands and wives tally up at the end of the day and say, well, now, wait a minute. I love her if she's done enough for me today, or she loves me if I have properly performed my functions?
No, you misunderstood me. That is not. I agree with you. It should be treated like a business deal, but every business has to have its own terms and its own kind of currency.
So it's not transactional. It's not like tit for tat. You made the bed, I wash the dishes. It's more like, do you love the totality of that person? Is that person a good person? Do you love their ethics, their virtue, the way they treat you? So even if they make a mistake, it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to divorce this person. Like, overall, do you actually love this person? Do they actually have value to your life?
Love, the currency is virtue. You love people not for what you do for them or what they do for you. You love them for the values, the virtues which they have achieved in their own character. You don't love causelessly. You don't love everybody indiscriminately. You love only those who deserve it.
And then if a man is weak or a woman...
But, okay, I'm going to keep going because he's about to make a point that I've been saying many times.
...is weak, then he is beyond love?
He certainly does not deserve it. He certainly is beyond. He can always correct it. Man has free will. If a man wants love, he should correct his weaknesses or his flaws, and he may deserve it. But he cannot expect the unearned, neither in love nor in money, neither in matter nor spirit.
You have lived in our world, and you recognize the fallibility of human beings. There are very few of us, then, in this world, by your standards, who are worthy of love.
Unfortunately, yes, very few. But it is open to everybody to make themselves worthy of it, and that is all that my morality offers them.
If they will
a way to make themselves worthy of love, although that's not the primary motive.
Right, but this doesn't only apply to love. It's like anytime somebody's asking for your favor, they want you to do something for them, they want you to respect them, whatever it is, they are not entitled, or they want your attention, they're not entitled to that. They have to earn it, right? Because there's this whole misconception that they're entitled to your respect for your time. It's like, no, what virtue, what are you offering, and what do I get out of this? Right? If you want me to debate you, what am I, like, this benefits you. You want me to do whatever you want me to do. It has to be in your rational self-interest. If it's only in their interest, then you shouldn't do it.
Let's move ahead.
And specifically, let me just backtrack a little bit. When I was talking about their causes, they want you to support their cause, but they're not going to support yours. They have not earned your support.
How does your philosophy translate itself into the world of politics? Now, one of the principal achievements of this country in the past 20 years particularly, I think most people agree, is the gradual growth of social...
All right, I'm probably going to stop there because she's good into economics. Basically, she based a public policy of self-sacrifice destroys whole countries. This is something that the Rand Institute talks about, but I really don't want to get into economics. But I hope you guys get the gist. It's not wrong to be selfish. Um, it is wrong to exploit. It's wrong to extract. But you should put yourself above others because they are putting themselves before you. The difference is that they're putting themselves above you, and they think that you should also put them above yourself. So they want to extract, and they think that you should give. That's not how it works. It should be mutual. You should care about those who care about you. If they don't care about you, you don't have to care about them. This is like, because I probably a while back I asked like, what is the basis of obeying your parents? And I was like, and I gave several. It was a poll, and I gave several choices. And I said, basically, I was asking, is the basis of your obedience to your parents the fact that they love you? And I don't think they really agree with me. They or that they like, because you do it thinking that they're concerned with your welfare, and it's like, I don't think that's how it really works. I think your parents a lot of times just think that I'm your parent, I'm your master, you're my slave. You should do it because I'm above you. It doesn't matter whether it's for your protection, whether it's correct. You should just do it because I say so. It doesn't matter if I'm contradicting myself. I'm above you. You should just do it. You guys, I'm glad that there's more people coming in, but unfortunately, I'm pretty much done. Um, so you guys can catch the replay and post some comments, but I'm pretty much out of content unless somebody wants to come up here and talk or something. I mean, I can post a link, but I don't know if anybody's going to come up. But yeah, go back and catch the replay because I said a lot in this, and a lot of times when I'm talking, people don't know where it's coming from. Most of the things that I'm saying comes from some type of philosopher. I listen to a lot of them. Ayn Rand is a big influence on the things that I say. She's not the only one. I mean, I wouldn't even say she's a primary one, but people like David Hume, Aristotle, Schopenhauer, right? It's I'm not a lot of times when I'm speaking, I'm not making these things up. It came from somewhere. So it's like, maybe I don't know, if you think that I'm wrong, then you can maybe ask like, where did you get that idea? And I probably could tell you. I don't think anybody's going to come up. So I'm just trying to stall a little bit, but I don't have anything else to say. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening. Have a good day. I do have more. I have plenty of content. So I will probably be back tomorrow or over the weekend.